Alright, we're back. So the first thing I want you to do, if you haven't done it already, is create this folder. After you've done that, you need to make a folder with all the images that I've provided. It won't be this JPEG, it'll just be these Adobe stock. You will find it on the site. So make sure that it is within this folder that you've created, this capital ID _ lesson 1 _ summer. This has extra stuff. You won't have the videos. You'll just have the InDesign, a PDF, and the images. I would like that all uploaded as a zip file for me once this is done. So refresher, this is what we're making. That's number 1, 2, and 3. So let's start with the first one. So the first one, just make sure you have all those images downloaded. First thing we want to do is we need to make sure that you have a mask. We're missing our bleed in this. So if you somehow lost your bleed, I'm not quite sure how mine was lost, you can always go to Document Setup. So let me show that to you again. File, Document Setup. So this might be like your bleed changes. You've talked to a printer and they said they want less or more. Your margin might change. This margin is okay, we want that. But somehow we lost our bleed. So if you don't have a bleed, you can easily do this. You might already have one, so you might not have to worry about it. I can preview. See, you'll have this red line around the edge. Let's hit OK. So we're going to get back into Pages. So Pages is something here that we talked briefly. It has all 3 of the pages that I set up when I first opened the document. And it has a masters and none. So if I grab the none and put it on here, see how the A goes away? It is no longer connected to the masters. Unfortunately for this project, we won't really need a masters, but I'm just going to show you what a masters can do very quickly. So if I put a big, let's say S, what happens is, and I'm on the master page, the master should have S on all of them. Maybe I didn't put it on the masters. That's the first sign of. You have to be on the masters for sure for it to work. So what master does is put some copy in here. It should link up to all the pages and be the master is the original form of what it is. So that makes no sense. Sorry. This master is a template that should have the same information exactly in the same spot for all the pages. So something that would be in the same spot for all the pages would be like a page number. If I was making some sort of presentation, I might have my company name on the top. So something that would be on all the pages. So now I'm back on the pages, and you can see that it is also on all the pages. We'll come back to it, but I just want to let you know what masters is. So if I take it off the masters, it'll take it off all the pages. Alright, so let's get into what we really need to talk about, and that is adding images and how to edit images in correctly. And we're going to use some of the shapes also to just kind of remember that we can use shapes also in the software. So the first thing I want to do is grab the rectangle that has the X in it, because that's going to remind me that this is the layer with my image in it. And I'm going to go up into File. So go up into File on the top panel here. and then go to place. It also is Command D. Select it, and this dialog box comes up. Make sure you know where your folder is. So this is where my folder is, and this is everything in my folder. Now I can see images, and I can look at these images. Now you can't really see the image, and I'm looking for the one with the feet. If I hit spacebar, the image will come larger so I can scroll through them to see each image. So I'm just using the arrow key on my keyboard to see all the images. So that's one way of looking at it, so that you don't have to, but there's other ways of looking at. I can see it a little bit larger here with the icons. This might be a better way of seeing it. There used to be like a big column thing or a slideshow. So in any case, I know this first one is the one I want. I'm going to go back to lists. I prefer lists, and I'd rather click on it and hit spacebar to get it larger. So I know that's the right one. I want to make sure this is replace, even though it's not really. I'm not replacing anything. There's no image already there. But it's good to always have that clicked and then hit open. So see how it's placed into the image. So let's look back at my image, my final image. So my final image, I want more feetsies in my image. Kind of this bar here of the vista of the water is further, like kind of just above the center. So I'm going to have to kind of manipulate the image to get in there. So remember that this last toe is here, and we're getting like the second foot, the second toe of the 1 foot. All right. So we definitely don't have all the feetsies in. So I'll expand it using, I was using Command -+, but you can also use the zoom to zoom in and out. So I want to go out, so I'm going to hit Option. I'm going to select my tool to allow me to move the image around. It won't work if you've got the side corners. You need to click where this circle is and make sure you see this outer line. This outer line, if you hold on, is that image. So see how much we're missing? I really need to get it a lot smaller. So let's grab this corner and hit Shift. And we're just going to have to kind of, I'm going to close this a little. Shift and drag. And I'm going to lose it a little bit, but I'm going to grab it and drag it back into my box. So this is a little too small. My original didn't have the bag. So I'll hit Shift and drag it back out. And you kind of do this until you get it close. So my original, I didn't have the bottom showing as much. I said I had this just over that vista line, just over the center point. And I really like to keep that bag out of the image. So I think I'm pretty good with this. Might not be exactly, but I try to get it closer to this aspect. I might have to bring this in a little if I'm going to be fussy. But I think it's good. Alright? So the image is set. You've played around with grabbing the image and moving it within the frame. That's a really important task when it comes to image placement. The other thing, let's check and see what's going on with my link. Here's my link. It says it knows where it is. It's got the name of it and the format. And it's saying 1. I have 1 image available. Now let's see what happens when I accidentally move that link outside of that folder that I had. Give me a second to grab that folder. And if I move that image outside the folder that I had, it's going to show that I can't see it anymore. So here's that folder. And if I were to move somehow, did not have this folder connected and move this outside of that folder, if I go back to the original, you'll see it has a question. Missing, double click to relink. It doesn't know where that image is. And if it cannot pull the reference to that image, this image will come out blurry because it's only a snapshot of it. For it to be really sharp and clean, we need to have the image linked properly. So I'm going to go back to my desktop, find that image. I need to find my folder again. Find that image folder and bring it back to where I had it when I started. So if you keep it within this folder and only move this folder in different places, it will link up to the original file. So there it is, it's back. It says, thank you, we found you, it's back in place. Alright, so that's done. The next is we're going to put in type. So we're talking about summertime fun in New Jersey. So let's write out the copy. So I'm going to do it all caps. All right. Let's make sure that our type box is really close to it, but not too close so it disappears. And let's grab the magnifying glass again to come closer, because we don't need to blind ourselves on this project. There's a nice, clean, framed-in image to our mask. This is where it would be cut off. So before we go further, the one thing I want you to do is just hit W for me. Make sure you're not on the type. Make sure you're on the selection tool, and then hit W. This is what the image looks like. This is the way it'll be cut out. If you hit W again, this is our working layout. So it shows our columns, it shows our bleeds. So if I want to look at something when I'm working at it and just see where it looks like for final, this is what it would show you. This is working. So W will take you back and forth from the two different looks. Finished look to working on look. Let's stay here, and then I'm going to make sure this is spaced correctly. And next thing I'm going to do is change the font. I want to make sure that I have that cleared in that I wanted. Again, Times in Roman will be fine, or Times if you can't find Times. But if you can find the cleared in, I think that it would be much better. So super cleared in. So it has this red dot, this red square with an X in it because the image is larger than the text box. So if it's too small, it'll disappear. You need to drag it out large enough, but then you can double click at any of these corner points or X points to get all the image into the square. I like doing the angled so we can get two up. So I want summertime on the top and in New Jersey on the bottom. Now I just want to resize this. I'm on the selection tool. I'm just going to drag, that's not right. So if I want to resize this, remember what I told you, you have to go to E for transform. Now if I hit shift, I can resize the image. And I want the image for now to just kind of be about that size. The next thing I'm doing for this one is I'm going to go back to the type tool, and I'm going to center this. Actually, I'm not centering it. It was in the next one. Sorry. What I am going to do is, select in, and I want to make it a lot smaller. So I can go up here, and I'm going to change it to like 24. Oh, not small enough. Let's see, 18? That's looking better. I want it to be significantly smaller. I also want to change the style to italic. So what I did with the N is it's super Clarendon, it's italic style, and it's 18 points. I still have it selected. I want this to kind of be in the center. So to do that, I need to move it upwards. And I can do that under this tool here. See, it's shifting the A above. And now I have it a little bit higher within the space. Might be a little too high. So let's go back down to, let's go to 4. So this is at 4. All of the type, or summertime, I want you to go back and change this to 30. I don't like it when it's not a solid round number. So make those to 30. This one is 18. And the leading is on auto, which is fine. So just keep it at auto. Alright, so we're almost there. Maybe this gets a little bit smaller. Let's bring this to 14. I want it to be significantly smaller than the rest. The other thing is, I want it to be, active. I kind of think that they all should be italic. Alright, it's kind of more fun and playful. We got things happening in Jersey. And then I thought blue would be a nice color to add. Kind of summery, kind of relating back to the ocean. Now, look over everything that I've done. I have changed, I've selected all of the type, and I've changed it. You got to use T to change just the color. Because if you're not on T, you'll change the type box. And we don't want to change the type box to a color. We want to change the type to a color. So be careful with that. You have to have the type selected, and then you can select the color. So when I did this, I had this more centered. So I'm going to have you guys center it also. So I would look at your grid and put it towards the center. Or you can use, see how there's center points within this image? You can use that by pulling the guide over and lining it to the center. And then this can be lined to the center. But you have to make sure that this is at the box is encasing the type all the way. If you go too much, you'll lose the type, right? So just enough to be just over the type. Now this will tell you where the center is in this type box. And I can move it over to being perfectly centered within my image box. Or I can select both and let alignment tool do it for me. If you're using this rule, the guide, and you can't seem to get it to work, oh, I just deleted everything. It's because you don't have ruler on. Ruler is Command R. See, now I have the numbers lined up. So if you don't have that, you won't be able to pull a rule to make a new guide. So make sure you have that working. Again, pause and take notes. If I'm moving fast, go back, write notes for this stuff, because we've learned a lot just in a few seconds. So Command R is your ruler. We've made things fit in the bleed. We've done an alignment trick of aligning these perfectly centered. We made sure the type box fits the type incorrectly. We moved the image so that it fits perfectly in our square. So the things I was avoiding was I don't really want the little basket end. I just want the feetsies in the background. So I've been avoiding this little corner. Alright, so we're getting close. We still have 2 more things to do, and we'll take a little break before we jump to the next postcards. So we still have the trim to add and the little circle in the box, circle in the in. All right. So since all of these are done, we could select them and use layers, and we could lock it. We could change this to text and image slash. So this is why this part is nice to have, and then maybe this is our frame or border, if you want to say it. So we're going to add some border and that little circle. So if we don't want to accidentally move or make any mistakes, then we keep this locked. And we know that everything that we add is going to be on top of this, so we can keep it below the next layer. Remember, layers work on one below the other. Alright, let's get into the circle. I go right as close as I can, hit Shift Option to come through the center. Shift Option. So if I just do Shift, I can make it not a perfect circle. I have to do Shift Option, and I'll drag from the center. Shift Option. So look at your keyboard and find Shift Option. Unfortunately, I'm not sure what it is in PC. Once I do that, I'm going to have to visually center that within that in. And I want to change this to the blue color that I'm using. Again, if you're not getting this full color panel, you can make your color. It's 100 cyan, 90 magenta, a little bit of 10Y. So if you're missing this color and you want it to look exactly the way I have it, you can go to your color palette, change this to CMYK, and you can create this one. So I think it was 100, 90, and 10. This I have to bring down to 0. So this should be the blue that you have, and you can use this. So once it's here, you can move it to here. That might be a little confusing. But if you are missing these standard colors, you can create it and just look at this number that I have here. 100, C for 100, M for 90, Y for 10, and K, which is black, 0. And I built that here. Cyan, 100, magenta, 90, yellow, 10. So you can have very specific colors that you give people formulas to create the exact color tone that you want. Let's beef this up a little to 2, I think. And voila. We got the little circle. Now we need to do 2 more circles. 2 more framing for this image. I want blue dots around the outer edge, and then this on the margin I want 2 yellow lines. So this is pretty easy. I'm going to take my one that's not for frames. This is just a shape. I'm going to be right on where it would be trimmed. I want it blue, but I'm going to change it using some of the characters I have already available for line strokes. So I can do dot or Japanese. And I had this at like 6. So there's a nice dot. If you want to bring this a little bit more in so that you know that it gets trimmed, you can bring it in a little bit. The next one, I want you to grab another rectangle and select the margin. And we're going to change this to yellow, which is cyan 0, magenta 0, yellow 100. So if you don't have it, you should be able to make that very easily. This will also be 6. So again, if I wanted to make that, I would go to my little hamburger bars, call them hamburger bars, and I would just change it to 100. Alright, now I have another option here. I'm going to do these 2 thick bars. So to go back remember I went and grabbed a rectangle, put it on the outer edge, and chose either Japanese dots or dots. And then on the margin, I made another rectangle using the rectangle without the X in it, right? Because this is not for image making. And then you can pick one of these lines if you would like. You don't have to choose the one I have. But I chose for mine the two thick ones. So remember that W? Let's make sure we click on our arrow that's the direct tool, because if we were on type, we can write out W. Let's hit W and see what this looks like. So this is what we're getting right now for our dots. If you want to bring it in a little and adjust it to make the dots fit into the page, go ahead. But this is what you should kind of have. It's a little different. I think when I did it the first time, the only thing I did that was different was I made the type bolder. And see, I'm having trouble getting to the type because I forgot that I locked it. So I made this actually the italic bold. But you don't have to. What we did was fine. But if you do want to change it, you would have to adjust and pull it out. And then you might have to align everything together again. Be careful that that circle will be affected. So now everything is centered to each other, and then I can just drag this in. So I made it a little bit bolder in style. Again, make sure I have the selection tool, and I hit W to see what it looks like. And this is where we got. This is not so centered because there's an extra on that edge. So you might want to grab it again and align. That's what I said, that aligning tool is my favorite. Alright, please go take a break, take a little walk, and we're going to work on the next one in a minute.